Now let's talk about advance directives. Writing down your choices about your future healthcare, at a time when you can still communicate those choices is going to help make sure your wishes are carried out. For instance, an advance directive is important when someone's in a coma, on life support and are, unlikely to ever recover, so very end of life or near end of life situations. Writing down your choices ahead of time while you're clear headed, can really spare family members from just heartbreaking choices about whether to keep you on life support and what kinds of, treatment to administer or not. Um, Advanced directives can state what types of treatments you want in three very distinct situations. And the advanced directive in Maryland is broken down into two parts. The first part, part one, is where you name your agent and the powers that the agent has are listed. Part two, and it is optional, it's known as a living will. Some of you may have heard that term used, living will. Um, it is optional, but if you're working with me and we've gone this far, I'm going to highly encourage you to complete part two and make some decisions in part two. And this is where you make those choices about the kind of care you want or don't want. And unless a living will in an advance directive says otherwise, it takes effect when the attending physician and another doctor certify in writing that the patient is unable to make an informed decision about their health care, right? So before I move on, I want to touch on what those three situations are, because I get questions about them a lot. The three scenarios, just for those of you taking notes. The first one is when death is imminent. So think, you get hit by a car, you're airlifted to, shock trauma, and the doctors have tried everything and they determine that you've got, 24 to 48 hours to live. Those are my numbers, but that, it's kind of urgent. That's imminent. The next example is when you're in what's called a persistent vegetative state. Persistent vegetative state. Think coma. That's the example that I use most often when I'm explaining this to my clients. And then the last stage, or the last scenario, is when you're in an end stage condition. A lot of people think of cancer. And there are three very distinct scenarios. And the thing is, a lot of people have never even thought about what kind of care they'd want. They don't even want to think that they would be in that position to begin with. But to then have to say, well, this is the kind of care I want if, I'm in a coma, if I only have, 48 hours to live, if I have, an end stage, cancer like condition and I have no chance of recovering. That's pretty triggering for a lot of people. And my job as an estate planner is to just be there with you, walk you through, talk you through, all the questions that, that you may have so that you can make an informed decision. And the last thing I want to say on this, as well as any other documents, is that they aren't, it's not like the 10 Commandments. They're not like chiseled in stone, never to be changed again. You have the right to change your mind. If you are, 45 right now and you complete an advance directive, depending, based on what you think and feel and believe at that time, that doesn't mean that when you're 65, that you're not going to have a change of heart, or 85, that you're not going to have a change of heart about the types of care that you want or don't want. So in all of these documents, I want you to keep in mind that nothing is set in stone. There are ways to update and amend them, and they should be updated as your life and your family changes.